Hi everyone, if you're new to this channel, my name is Palabyab and I've been a professional filmmaker and photographer for more than 10 years now. You can see some of my work on my website and here on my YouTube channel. Today I wanted to talk about something that surprised me, which is that ever since I upgraded from an iPhone 6 to the iPhone 10, and it's the iPhone 10, not even the iPhone 10s, the original iPhone 10, I've been leaving my pro camera, my Sony A7RII full-frame mirrorless at home more and more. I've even sold my Sony RX104, which was a camera I really loved a lot. So I want to dig into those reasons in this episode to hopefully give you some perspective on the iPhone 10 as a photography tool. First of all, I want to clarify that I mean this in the context of personal travel and just like everyday stuff. Of course, I would never just rely on my iPhone for a professional job unless the client specifically asked me just to shoot on an iPhone. But so the context for this is actually like something I talk about in another video that I'm posting at exactly the same time as this one. There's a link to it in the description up here in the card. Where my most popular landscape photo this year was actually like shot in a few seconds on my iPhone with like so little thinking, so little preparation. And here are the reasons why, well, the iPhone 10 as a photography tool is plenty good enough. The first reason is really a simple general improvement in image quality. I'm not gonna get into all the technical reasons. I'm not even really that interested in it. I don't even know how it compares to, say, the flagship Android phones. I'm sure some of those in other aspects are better. But just comparing it to the previous generation of iPhone, which I had for the longest time, you can really see the image processing mainly is really greatly improved. It just crosses a threshold of quality where, to my eyes, I don't see it as that bad anymore, where it's actually like, under the right conditions, is quite good. Not SLR good, but in bright sunlight, wide landscapes, sometimes like it even looks better because of the way they're processed out of the camera, like especially with this really smart implementation of HDR. Honestly, I'm just overall really pleased with the results, and when my friends who are on the older iPhones borrow my iPhone 10, they're all say like, oh wow, this looks so much better than my phone. So that's reason number one. Just generally image quality has reached a point where, to my eyes, I'm not embarrassed to use the photos anymore. Second thing, and this to me may be like one of the most important things, aside from of course this is the generally improved image processing, is this second lens on the phone. In my personal photography work, I shoot on a 24 to 240 lens, so basically I'm really into zooming in, and having this like 50 plus, is it 56 millimeter equivalent lens, just opens up perspectives that allow the photos to really look much more like the work I shoot on my professional camera. Like this photo I was talking about, I'll show again here, that was my most liked landscape photo of the year, was shot on this lens, and I find myself relying on this lens to really create that semi-telephoto perspective that just gives this relationship between objects that I much prefer than just using a simple like 24 to 28 millimeter lens like you get on most phones. And of course, with the two lenses in the telephoto, you have this portrait mode, which is honestly, like, at first when I saw it, I was skeptical, but in the actual implementation of it on this generation and of course the next generation of iPhones, I really love the results. And even my friends who are professional photographers who don't have dual lens phones with this kind of mode, they're really like, oh my god, they tell me when they see the results, they have so much fun shooting with it. That second lens alone makes it worth upgrading, and I tell you, you're gonna have so much fun when you finally have this option. The third reason I really enjoy shooting with the iPhone 10 now is that as a filmmaker, it's really important to me to be able to shoot in 4K, but not just 4K, but 4K in 24p and 60p. With this phone, I have the option to shoot at like full 4K Ultra HD at slow motion, which is a really fun, handy thing to have. You know, usually phones shoot 4K at 30p. That's always been the default for like previous generations of phones, and 24p just really looks more cinematic. There's so many more videos explaining why. I don't have time, but for me, just having the option to finally have 24 frames per second in 4K really makes this a great tool now for being able to shoot, again, like kind of wide shots in bright sunlight. And it's really fun for things like vlogging or just getting extra B-roll, especially when I'm traveling, since I do a lot of travel content. Just allows me to add a lot of stuff that I wasn't able to shoot with my main camera, or if my main camera is shooting a time lapse, I now have a 4K B camera right in my pocket. And speaking of right in my pocket, of course, another major reason that sometimes I just leave my main camera at home is that it's just so big, and I do a lot of hiking, you know, kind of rough travel, or like traveling in the elements, and just having like a semi-waterproof tiny camera that I always have with me is just, for me, allows me to immerse myself in the experience so much more than having like all of my expensive gear with me. I'm worrying less, I'm carrying less, and it's such a luxury to have a tool that can shoot good enough photos and videos in such a small package. Next up is RAW editing. So on the newer generation of smartphones, you can use apps like what I use is Lightroom CC Mobile to be able to shoot and immediately edit in RAW, so that I can save a little more of the highlights and be able to set a perfect white balance in situations where the white balance isn't obvious. Although, to be honest, after playing with RAW for a few months now, you know, of course it's fun because I can apply the exact same edits, especially with color, that I apply to the photos on my Sony A7RII. But the thing is, the image processing straight out of camera JPEGs on this is so good that sometimes I can't even make it look as good as the JPEG, particularly with the way the phone implements HDR. This natural HDR makes a huge difference in the image quality. It makes this phone, and the phones like it, punch way above their weight in terms of image quality. Next reason I love shooting on my iPhone X is that, as I said, on my professional camera, I always shoot in RAW, and at 42 megapixels, every file is between 40 and 80 megabytes, which means the files are so big that I really just like kind of pick my spots. I try not to shoot too much. I always delete the files I don't use. But, you know, with a phone, with the JPEGs, they take up so little space that I'm just free to shoot as much as I want and play and kind of bring back that like old joy that you had as a beginner, where you're just trying everything and shooting as many frames as you can. Because over time as a professional, you know, you learn to pick your spots. But shooting with the phone, it's just like there's something that feels not so serious about it, where I just feel like, yeah, whatever, I'm just gonna take, even though it might not be a good photo, it's not gonna take up any space anyway. And well, actually, paradoxically, the result of that is, because I shoot so much or much more again, I actually end up with some beautiful shots that I never expected, and that's just what happens when you shoot a lot. The next reason is actually kind of a hack, and I'm not sure if you know about this, but if you shoot a live photo on the iPhone, you can swipe up to convert the photo to a long exposure, and I've used this to create some fun effects that I'm going to show you right now. I turn on live photo, I shoot, and I convert, and it's already ready to share. And so I really love this hack, and I suggest you try it yourself. Next reason that I actually mentioned just now is that everything I shoot on my phone is basically immediately ready to share. There's so many good editing apps. Mainly I rely on Lightroom CC Mobile, Photoshop Mobile, and sometimes I use Visco just to get like a good starting point for editing. You know, and I love sharing my process. I love sharing little photos because, you know, my Instagram feed is already highly curated. I can't just post random stuff that I find cool there. And so it's so nice to just like shoot a bunch of like cool snapshots and post it immediately in my Insta stories. Although, like I said, my most popular landscape photo this year was in fact shot on this phone. And one last reason related to that is that, unlike the photos I shoot on my A7R II, the photos on this phone just require so much less processing. I mean, first of all, it's because mostly they're JPEGs, and JPEGs don't stand up to much editing. But also it's just, you know, I shoot so many and there's not as much pressure on them. So there's just that joy and fun of photography again, which is just like shoot and share, and like just take pictures of anything. I don't have to conform to the theme of my Instagram. It makes photography, you know, feel like a hobby again. It makes photography feel like play again, because you're just kind of shooting on a toy camera, except that they've made the cameras so good now that they can sometimes be mistaken or be good enough for professional work. Okay, now before I get attacked by like your internet photography experts and enthusiasts, because God knows like how ridiculously heated these debates get in like comment sections and forums and photography and stuff. I'm not saying that the iPhone X is a replacement for a professional large sensor camera like the Sony A7RII, which is like one of the best cameras like available today. What I'm saying is that for many cases, especially like in like brightly lit outdoor landscapes, they are plenty good enough. They don't hold a candle to large sensor cameras in many respects, like in resolution, most especially in low light, which just so happens to be like the main topic of my work, night photography. But what I'm saying is just, you know, it's fun, and finally the photos are good enough that when I go on things like short hikes, when I walk around the new city, I'm not really thinking about bringing my Sony A7RII anymore. I can use my iPhone X to have really nice snapshots, to have good travel memories recorded in my pocket. Anyway, if you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I hope it was helpful, enlightening, or at least fun. And if you want, you can check out the companion video I made to this. It talks about some insights I gained from the fact that my most popular landscape photo this year was actually shot on my iPhone. Anyway, I'll be posting more photography content from here on in. If that sounds good, please don't forget to hit like and subscribe, maybe even think about hitting the bell for notifications. And I will see you again next week. Thanks for watching.